Once again, a huge welcome to the Arable Leader podcast, where we talk about leadership of a different kind, leadership from a deeper place. We talk about the qualities of true, brave, kind, and curious, and how they actually change things in this world. Leadership is the greatest human gift and the greatest skill. And so we have conversations with fascinating leaders who help us understand something about these qualities. And it's a massive privilege today to welcome you, Jeremy. Jeremy Fudge is a friend, a client actually, and the CEO of BAL, which is, as far as I understand, one of the most awesome immigration law firms in the United States of America. Welcome, Jeremy. It's good to have you here.
Thanks for letting me be here.
This is the Arable Leader podcast. I'm Karl Martin, and we're exploring true, brave, kind, curious leadership, leading from your soul. Let's get straight into it. I'd love to go deep as quickly as we can.
Okay.
Leadership is having a moment. Like this year, something like 50% of the world are going to vote for their leaders. Mm-hmm. And if you watch any media outlet, it's a car crash, right? It's a car wreck. Watching the kind and quality of leaders who are being put up for election is just really almost heartbreaking as someone who thinks about leadership. When you think about leadership, and when you think about voting, and when you think about employing other people to lead, talk to me about some of the qualities that you're looking for in the kind of leader that you want to employ or even want to follow.
That's jumping in the deep end right out of the gate. I think the thing that gets overlooked the most when people talk about leaders and leadership is they view it still through the lens of manager and of doing a function or getting a job done or something sort of in a industrial revolution sense almost of leader versus what we try to do and what we try to develop in our people and what we're looking for externally is leaders who understand the weight of leadership in the sense of you have a group of people that you are stewarding. Yeah. And that's a very different way to think about it, but it brings into play both different skills, people skills more than subject matter expertise, et cetera. It also brings into play empathy, EQ, things like that wouldn't normally come into play maybe. There's plenty of studies, there's plenty of other things out there that prove this case, but the case is very proven of someone who is a leader in that sense, who's really taking care of their people, who's investing in their people, who's building a relationship with their people, who's creating trust with their people, is going to get the best out of them, which is going to be the best for the company then. So there is this corporate commercial ROI that happens, even though on the surface people sort of sometimes go, oh, that's soft, that's mushy, that's touchy-feely, and that's not the kind of leadership. We need leadership that drives the bottom line. And it's like, well, you actually can get there this other way.
Well, let's put a pin in some of that because we'll come back to some of that in a bit. Where did you catch this leadership thing? Because in my estimation, leadership is very rarely taught. It should be taught, actually, but it's usually caught, sometimes accidentally. Yeah. Where did it come from for you? And can you talk about some of the early days of your leadership journey?
Yeah, I think that's true in a large way of taught. I did not have any formal training either, whether in college or in law school or in the early working years. My best models for it probably came from my own dad, and not even in he ran a company sort of leader way, but just in how he viewed leadership more generally and life more generally. So that brings into play like servant leadership, for example. Yeah. It's not about you, it's about others, that whole kind of thing. Yeah. I think I had some good influences and not even mentors in a formal sense, but just people that I could talk to and have a reference point to and observe, where I could say, I want to be like them. Yeah. And then a lot just through reading books, honestly. And I'm a very active consumer of reading.
Wow. Jeremy, obviously we have the true, brave, kind, curious thing going on. And I'd love to land we joked a little bit earlier. I'd love to land on kind, actually.
Yeah.
But in order to get there, I want to go through true.
Yeah.
You are fascinating to me and a bit of an enigma. There's this kind of slightly scruffy looking. You usually wear a grey T-shirt.
Yeah, blue
usually your
today.
jeans and a pair of jeans and a pair of training shoes, or you call them tennis shoes, or whatever.
Yes.
And you mild obsession with U2, but you probably spent more money on Taylor Swift tickets in your time.
Yes.
If you were to describe yourself in one or two words, and your leadership style and who you actually are, tell us about that.
I would probably say like Peter Pan, because even though I'm aging externally, in my core, I just feel like I'm still a kid, just exploring and learning and running around and having fun. And I think that comes through in a lot of ways, right? Like the room we're sitting in, all the rest of the walls of this whole office are, byproducts of my and another person's brain. That's like, let's not sit in a stodgy office with just white walls everywhere and whatever. Like, let's have some fun. Let's be playful with it for lots of reasons. And so I think that comes through in my leadership in general. I think that's part of what grounds me in a sense. That there's a humility that comes with a childlike mindset as well.
Yes.
And I think it's also part of the sense of like pushing for growth constantly, right? So yeah, in a weird way, Peter Pan.
I mean, yeah, and it is weird, really, isn't it? Because to be honest, you're the CEO of a law firm, and you're supposed to be serious, and they're supposed to be serious. And so let's delve into that, because I've walked around your offices, and they don't look like law offices.
Yeah.
And I've met some of your people, and they don't look like lawyers, right? And does that work?
Yeah.
Talk to me about your thinking behind the way in which you decorate your offices, the way in which you treat your team, the passion you have for their people development or their leadership development. Talk about that a little bit, because I think it's fascinating. I think our listeners will be fascinated to hear someone in what is perceived to be a traditional business, probably quite binary thinkers, actually beginning to open their mind to curiosity and wonder.
Well, there's a lot to unpack in that. I think there's a distinction to draw between the legal work we're doing and the environment in which we do it, the culture in which we do it, the physical surroundings in which we do it, et cetera, et cetera. So Peter Pan can't practice law. Yeah. Law is serious. It needs to follow rules.
Wendy can.
Maybe Wendy can, yes. But you can't take the whimsical approach and it's okay to fail approach and some of those things in the law work itself, right? Yeah. Now, can you experiment about how you're producing the work? Yeah. Right? But the core law part, no. So that's just an important distinction to draw. But I think same would be for, an engineering company with safety or, something. Sure. Boeing. And so I think that the context, though, in which you do it, that's where I think we get to play and where I get to play and be Peter Pan, right? We've got a phrase of pursue the exceptional, which is, in essence, growth mindset. It's the idea of like you're constantly trying to get better and improve. You don't settle. You don't sort of stagnate. You don't say good's good enough, that sort of thing. And that culturally, that has permeated everyone now. That's the DNA of like, how do we keep improving on things? And so that's a place you can have fun. That's a place you can be creative. That's a place you can stretch out and not be bound by the law. Yeah. And so that's part of it, I think, DNA-wise, culturally here. I think the other part is understanding purpose, understanding why we're here as an organization. That's rooted deeply in this idea of we're here to serve people. We're here to make a difference in people's lives. Yes. Our mission statement literally is provide an experience that makes a positive difference in people's lives. And so I think when you're focused in that mindset, you by nature, I think, take off this air of, I'm a lawyer, look at these degrees on my wall, look at my suit and tie, to I'm helping another human here, and how do I most effectively do that? Yeah. And maybe things would be a little different if we had, corporate clients in suits constantly showing up in the office, but we don't. Our clients we serve remotely in essence, and so you don't have any real external pressures on we need to look a certain way or dress a certain way.
And so is that where your leadership development fascination, I think, comes from? Is it the idea that leadership is a person before it's ever a process, and your job is to develop your people?
Yeah. And the key to that, I think, is that it's, in my mind, it starts with me as CEO.
Yeah.
Versus some CEOs may be thinking my first and foremost mandate is to pursue this bottom line or return value to shareholder or whatever it might be, right? That's important, and we don't not do that. But I see it as, well, I'm here to provide an experience that makes a positive difference in people's lives. Who are my people that I'm trying to do that? It's my people that work here. Do I deal with clients? Do I deal with vendors? Do I deal with other third parties? Sure. And I want to make a positive difference in their life. But like my mandate when I wake up each morning in my own mind is, I'm here to love and serve these people at BAL. So how do I do that?
Totally. And one of the things that I spend a lot of time doing with my clients is saying the customer is not king. And they hate that initially. And then we have a conversation about it. But if you want the customer to be king, the way the customer becomes king is that you learn how to be king. You learn how to help your people be king or queen. You learn how to be the project. You learn how they become the project. And it's like the overflow of that. It's like the law of indirect effort. And so you spend a lot of time and a lot of money doing leadership development here. And it's like, I don't know whether it's the number one thing, but it's one of the main things that you do.
Yeah, we invest heavily, and not just financially, but time, which is maybe more precious in some cases than money, and including my own personal time. I think it's rooted in, we can get into specifics of what that looks like, but I think it's rooted in that idea you just framed, which is, like the New Zealand All Blacks, one of the most famous rugby teams of all time. They have a phrase of better people make better All Blacks.
Yes.
We say better people make better ballers.
Yes.
Right? And the idea is just that. I think that we're absolutely here to serve the clients, and the clients are critically important. They make the whole thing happen or not, right? If you don't have clients, you don't have a business. But I think, and what I say to the folks here is just the best way to serve them is by being the best people we can be, the best immigration people we can be, the best leaders we can be. And if we're doing that, that will manifest into the greatest customer service there is. And I believe it. And, initially in my journey as CEO here, I was, in a sense, testing that to be true. I'd read it, but is it really true in real life? And then over the course of a decade plus now, it's proven true. So there is an ROI, in a sense, that you can see from that we go, let's invest what we invest into it. So, we have all sorts of systems and programs and things we do around leadership broadly and leadership development. Ranging from, a monthly meeting that every leader in the firm attends, and it's an hour, and 20, 30 minutes of that is teaching just on leadership. And that's what's happening, right? We have a leadership development program where we'll take 20 or so people in a cohort each year. It's a full year-long program. I attend virtually all of it, and it's basically almost 3 full days a month. And so I'm sitting in these meetings. I'm teaching some of them. I'm being able to answer questions they have and be part of their journey as they learn. We do a whole leadership retreat where we take 100 plus people down to Mexico every year, and we spend 3 days just fully on leadership, not what's the state of the business, not law and the changes in law, but on leadership. So we go real deep into it.
So you're a kind of a leadership development organization that happens to be a law firm.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate.
Brilliant. So let's just play with the concept that if you're the project, so if it's going wrong with you as a leader, it's going to kind of bleed out everywhere else because you carry the essence of this stuff. Let's talk about kindness just for a moment. Because one of the things I've noticed about you, and I think
I'm not kind.
Well, no, you are kind. It's just hidden sometimes. You're very kind. One of the things I've noticed, Jeremy, is that you have this strange and brilliant left brain, right brain thing, and you also have a capacity like almost no one I know, and a work ethic like almost no one I know, and standards that are very high. Okay, so you've got that going on, which has enabled you to build this and do this and ideate and think and create and deliver and execute and all those things. How do you militate or mitigate against people around you getting burnt out, not rising to the mark, feeling like that's now the standard, everyone has to be you? Can you help people? Because I imagine there's a number of people listening who are that kind of A-type personality who are going, not only have I achieved incredible things, but I've got carnage in my wake of people who just have not been able to make the mark or not been able to come on the journey. Talk to me about that.
It's been a journey. I think early on, I led out strongly in all those ways you just described and sort of had a mindset of you just need to keep up.
Yeah.
And people couldn't, and there was carnage.
Yeah.
I think over the course, I mean, this is not like you read one book or you spend one night thinking about it, but over the course of, a couple of years, I got to a place where I understood myself way better.
Yeah.
I am wired this way, and not everyone is this way, right? That's you understand yourself, but you understand not everyone's like you too. There are other types of people.
Yeah.
And so that was part of a process. I think part of a process was, what do I want to be known as, remembered for, that sort of thinking. And I don't, again, influenced a lot by my dad, but I don't want to be the guy that just drove everyone to the ground and we succeeded in wild ways, but everyone's dead.
Yeah.
Right? If you get to the top of the mountain, no one's left behind you following. You're like, what's the point?
Useless.
No one can take the picture.
Yeah.
And so there was some of that realization and just work in my own mind and heart of just like, what's the purpose of this and how do I want to be remembered? And I want to be remembered for, moving people up and helping them grow and that sort of thing. Not did we reach $1 billion in revenue or something like that. And so some of that, some of it was work that initiated actually out of my marriage, but has bled over into the work world now of how people receive me. Am I present? Am I focused? Can they tell I'm focused? Do they know I care?
Yes.
In my heart, I might care, but is it being expressed?
Yes.
Verbally, physically, everything, right?
What does it feel like to be the other side of
Yeah.
stuff?
And again, it started with my wife, but it's now bled into my whole world of just like, I'm really cognizant of that now and trying, keyword, to be better at that. So it's a lot of just, it's things that we don't want to do a lot of times. It's things of, sitting and thinking. It's thinking about yourself. It's understanding yourself and how you're wired. It's understanding other people and it's understanding purpose and things that just, this world is like this, right? And we're distracted by a million things and we're just, but like we don't do a lot of just sort of sitting and thinking and meditating. And
I want you to pause for just a moment and listen to that, because it's so valuable to understand in this world how the ability to pause, the ability to reflect, the ability to know yourself, the ability to lead yourself is the force multiplier in the ability to lead other people. Because there's so many people walking around in this world who are brilliant people who have no idea of the shrapnel of their lives exploding around everybody else and into everyone else's life. So it's a huge thing.
Yeah.
And well, it's just brilliant. Let me just, we haven't got huge amounts of time, but
I was told it was 4 hours.
Yeah, well, it could be. I'd love to talk about curiosity as a trait, because that's something you carry, the wonder thing, the kind of wide-eyed Peter Pan stuff. I'd love just to get a moment or two of your brain. What are you thinking about at the moment? What are you reading? What are you listening to? What's like maybe even scaring you a bit or freaking you out or stretching you to the point of, wow, if I get my head around this, what's going on in the mind of Jeremy Fudge?
That's a scary place. I mean, the way my brain works, like I'm constantly just absorbing things around me, and it's all sort of, in a sense, getting filed away subconsciously, and it all sort of emerges and connects back later. And so like we're in a weird stage of, or not a weird, but we're in a new stage of life where we've got 2 kids that just went to college and we still have 2 at home.
Yeah.
And in a sense, creating a different dynamic at home and creating a different relationship with those 2 still at home that didn't exist when the other 2 bigger, older personalities were at home.
Yeah.
And so there's parts of my world right now where it's observing that and it's figuring out what is the new thing here and sort of unpacking that. At work, I'm obsessed with AI and what we can do with that in our business and what we already are doing. And how do I've got a vision for not even just broader than AI, of transforming our business completely. And
you're allowed to give us a snippet?
We're pretty far down that road. Yeah, it's the practice of law in general and immigration too are super archaic.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of like the Mary Poppins Bank of England guy, right? Like it's just really archaic. And so technologically, how do we catch up to the modern world? Yeah. You go on any given app of any given service or product or company and you can just get service, right? And it happens. And so how do we catch up to that in a sense? Service delivery wise, it's how do we emulate some of that in the same way? So, right now, immigration is largely done through emails, and it's done through questionnaires, and it's done through things that are really like the things you dread if you go to the doctor and you got to fill out the questionnaire every time. It's just not pleasant. And so, so there's a little bit in there of just like, how do we modernize that? How can people communicate with us however the heck they want to? WhatsApp us, right, or whatever. And so those are not traditional legal things. But I think we can actually revolutionize, that's not an understatement, the industry with what we're doing.
And beyond that, you've written a book. You're doing a number of other things as well. There's an interesting future ideas for you.
I'm a reader, like I said, and so I've read a gajillion books on business and leadership and all kinds of things. And I got to a point where I said, actually someone said to me, at some point you got to stop reading other people's books and write your own. And so I said, all right, that's a good point. And so it's a combination of, it's a leadership book, but it's a combination of my own experiences and validations of that from bestsellers and historical, work. And so, that's next year. But I read just sort of constantly. And it's, you find the same principles and truths, if they're truths, you find them over and over in the same stuff, but it's different people's stories associated with it. It's different people's ways of explaining those principles. And I think that's what I like to see is you find that nugget and you go, I know that nugget, but here's a different sort of facet of it.
Well, let's just bring it to a conclusion around that stuff. The truth is the truth is the truth, right? And we make no secret, I make no secret of the fact that I believe that all these qualities come from a deeper place. And I also think that everyone starts with a leadership philosophy or a philosophy of life or a deep-rooted thought in life. Where does all of this come from for you? Where does all this begin? Where does it end? What's at the heart of it?
I think at the very, very core of it all for me, again, heavily through my dad's influence on my life, is my Christian faith and believing there is a God and believing that there's a plan to all of this and so forth. And so that perspective that gives you and that sense of values and that sense of purpose, I think grounds you in a way maybe that nothing else can. So that's been core for me.
And how does that play out in BAL? I mean, clearly you're not like preaching at anybody or praying with people or reading the Bible at them.
Right.
What difference does that make to this?
Well, I think, in the most basic way, Jesus says, someone says to Jesus, what are the greatest commandment? He says, love God. And then he says, the second is to love others. Loving others should be a tangible, action-oriented thing, number one. And number two, the others and how you love the others should look and feel unique to each person, right? And so for me, it was 2011 or so, where I sort of went through this 9-month period of going, what does love others mean in my life?
Yeah.
And should I be doing something else with my life? Should I leave BAL? And wrestling with that. And it came down to what I said earlier, like the others is these people that I am stewarding here at BAL. And how do I love them? Well, I can love them through corporate programs we do. I can love them through leadership development. I can love them through, how I treat them and take them out to lunch, like all these tangible things, real ways. And so, people can get really wrapped up into various parts of theology and everything else, but really at the core, it's that. And that's a core, frankly, that isn't, anybody can love others. That's not a Christian thing.
Yeah. Final question. Coach the coach. So, you wear
a t-shirt.
No, never, rarely. If you had the opportunity to give me some advice around my leadership journey or what you've seen of me or what I'm doing right now, what are you going to coach me on?
Well, I don't know. You're great.
I love that. We're going to keep that one in because that's just awesome.
Put that on the website.
Okay, here's just a couple of outtakes. Walk-on music. You become like a megastar. You get to play at the Dome in Vegas, or every time you walk into BAL, there's a certain tune that plays. What's your walk-on music?
I mean, it has to be U2, and so...
It's not a beautiful day, though.
Vertigo? Yeah,
Vertigo.
No, it's got to be a rocking song.
Okay.
Yeah, Vertigo.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Worst piece of leadership advice that you've ever been given or given yourself?
Ooh, might be easier to say what I've given. Well, the one that's most real in my own life was when I started in litigation, not immigration, in law. And I was about 18 months at a different firm, and through 18 months, longer story than we have time for, I learned I loved immigration, I hated litigation, and I was going to switch. And so I was going to leave that firm and go to this other firm and do immigration. And I walked into the head person's office and said, here's my notice, I'm quitting, I'm going to go do immigration. And he was like, that's the worst decision you've ever going to make in your life. You're going to regret that forever. And, it's turned out very, very well.
I love that story. Yeah. I have a similar story, actually. I had a very close friend of mine who told me that the only thing that I shouldn't do when I started to think about leadership development, started to think about culture, is don't try and take it into the marketplace. Don't try and take it into business. Yeah. Just do it with nonprofits. Yeah. It's going to work with nonprofits. It's never going to work in business.
That's terrible advice.
And here I am today speaking to the wonderful Jeremy Fudge. Jeremy, it's been awesome. I'm so grateful for being in your house and around your artifacts. And later on, I'll wander the building again. Yeah. But thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for your vulnerability. Thank you for being willing to tell us what you really think and to give us a little bit of your story. That goes a long, long way. Thank you so much.
Loved it. Thank you.
Bless you, my friend.
You've been watching The Arable Leader with Karl Martin. Subscribe for more episodes with great leaders. And you can also listen to The Arable Leader wherever you get your podcasts. For more resources for leading in a healthy way, visit arableco.com and check out Karl's new book, The Cave, the Road, the Table, and the Fire.